For nearly 2 decades, the United States was haunted by a mystery no one could solve. Brilliant former professor Ted Kaczynski had seemingly vanished from society, living alone in a small cabin deep in the Montana wilderness. But then universities and airlines began receiving unusual packages. Each one was designed to cause fear and disruption, but no one knew who was behind it. The FBI launched one of the longest and most expensive investigations in American history, but the person behind it remained hidden. Until 1995, a long essay by an unknown author reached the newspapers. It argued that technology was destroying human freedom. And when it was published, one man recognized the writing style, Ted's own brother. That single clue finally cracked the case. In 1996, investigators entered Ted's cabin and discovered journals, tools, and drafts of the essay. The mystery of the so-called Unabomber was finally solved. Today, his story is remembered not just as a crime, but as a warning of how intelligence can be twisted into something that shocks the world. This is the story of Ted Kaczynski, the brilliant professor who became the Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski was born in 1942 in Chicago. He was a child prodigy, graduating from MIT at just 18 years old. He earned his Ph.D. from the University of Michigan and soon became a respected professor of mathematics at the University of Illinois. But behind the scenes, Ted was growing increasingly disturbed. He became convinced that modern technology was destroying humanity and he wanted to do something about it. So he began writing an essay arguing that technological advancements were destroying human freedom. He mailed copies to various universities and demanded that they publish it. But when they refused, he decided to do it himself. Using materials from his cabin, he built a homemade bomb and sent it to a professor at Northwestern University. It exploded, killing one person and injuring several others. Suddenly, Ted's face was plastered across America's newspapers. The FBI launched a massive manhunt, but he had already disappeared. For the next 2 decades, Ted would send bombs through the mail, targeting universities and airlines. 16 people were killed and dozens more injured. The FBI investigation would become one of the longest and most expensive in American history, but it would also become one of the greatest failures. Ted Kaczynski had become the Unabomber, and he was one step ahead of the FBI at every turn. He would often build his bombs weeks or even months in advance, making it almost impossible to trace them back to him. Plus, he always seemed to know when the FBI was closing in on him, disappearing into the Montana wilderness. Investigators would find his cabin, but it was always empty. He had somehow managed to evade them. Ted had become a ghost, haunting the country with his deadly packages. The media dubbed him the Unabomber, a name that would stick for the rest of his life. But Ted's reign of terror would finally come to an end in 1995, when his brother David recognized the writing style in one of Ted's essays. With this new lead, investigators were able to track down Ted's cabin and finally bring him to justice. Ted Kaczynski was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is currently 79 years old and still considered a dangerous criminal. If you like this kind of content, check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.